welcome back to Tales from the Albright, a podcast by the Scranton Public Library. Today we are here with Anne.
Hello, everyone.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Certainly. My name is Anne. I work in the reference department. I love doing these podcasts with Alyssa. This is my first one on video, so I'm a little nervous, but I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah. So today we'll be talking about Lansing C. Holden, who was an architect out of New York City, but he worked a lot in Scranton and designed many of the prominent buildings here in the city. This all started because when we were looking into the history of Nancy Hay Homes,
yes,
for their recent renovation project, which has started and is currently ongoing, we were trying to figure out who had originally designed the building. It took a lot of research.
It did.
Such a long time for somebody to find something. And eventually we found out that it was Lansing C. Holden. And it was a bit hard because a lot of articles in the newspaper all had different people listed, different years of construction, but it was Lansing C. Holden, and it was in 1889 that they started. There is an article in the Scranton Republican from November 20th of 1889, and they said that the Greenridge Free Library Committee held a meeting Monday evening and fixed upon December 2nd as the date of the organization. Plans for the building presented by architect Holden of New York were accepted and will be submitted at the general meeting in December. So between then and 1891, the Greenridge Free Library Committee had major fundraising campaigns to help pay off the cost of the library. And it was completed and had its grand opening by June 5th of 1891. And that was when it opened as a subscription library before switching to a free library in 94.
I didn't realize that they were before us.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Yeah, they started their organization quite a few years before. And then slowly, I think they were meeting out of somebody's living room for a time.
Was it Sanderson by chance, I wonder?
I know Sanderson donated the land.
Oh, he donated the land.
Yes.
Okay, that's what, okay. But I know he had a lot to do with.
Yes, I feel like he essentially owned the entire city of Scranton at
yes,
one point.
basically at that time, yes. At least that area.
Yeah. So I thought it would be interesting to look into who Lansing C. Holden was as a person and other projects he completed in the Scranton area. In his obituary, published in the New York Times on March 16th of 1905, Lansing C. Holden was born in 1858 in Rome, New York. He received an architecture degree from Worcester University in Ohio and became involved in the American Institute of Architects and was president of their New York chapter. He was also part of the Board of Examiners and the Board of Standards and Appeals in New York City, and it was also noted that he was an architect for the Lackawanna Railroad. And in his time, he was also a president for a number of companies, including the Bronx Refrigerating Company, the Greater New York Cold Storage Company, and the Triborough Trucking Company. He retired and moved away from the city and then died in May of 1930. Okay,
I didn't realize he died in 1930.
I know, it feels
just
late.
It does.
Yeah.
It seems very late. Yes, it does. And is he buried? At a castle, Kent Castle, is it?
Kent Cliff?
Is it Kent Cliff?
Something along those lines.
Yes. Because I was fascinated by that, and then I tried to look up, but there was really not a lot of information on it. So
he was from New York City, but he did spend a lot of time working in Scranton, especially during the turn of the century.
Yes.
So one of the projects that he's most known for is the Watrous Armory, as it's known today. And that started on March 20th of 1900. The Scranton Republican published an article detailing the process. Lansing submitted 2 potential plans for the armory for the trustees of the Scranton City Guard Association to choose from. The one they chose was described in the article as what might be termed 2 buildings or at most a double building. The armory proper, that is, the drill room, will be a building by itself and will bear its own weight, while the part of the structure in which the company room and administrative offices are located will compose another building. They will be built together, and while practically 2 buildings will nevertheless be compose one. I also found it interesting that in the article, they noted that underneath the drill room, there is a basement where they have a 100-yard rifle range, baths, toilets, gymnasiums, and a bowling alley.
Oh my gosh. Wow, I did not realize that.
No.
And I didn't realize that it's two separate buildings, but when you look at it, the entrances are so different. Mm-hmm. Wow, yeah.
I was surprised by the bowling alley.
That's very interesting, yes.
The article also mentions that if the stone on the outside was too costly, they would substitute bricks with stone accents.
Okay.
The plans were unanimously approved on April 20th. Those in attendance were reported as being very enthusiastic, even though the actual plans were in a crude state. They reported that Holden would have them completed by May 15th. This article then noted that the minor details have not been considered, but it is intended to add to the external appearance of the armory by the mounting of figures in armor, which will lend to the martial air which will surround a building of its nature. Then on May 26th, the Scranton Republican issued a statement that a meeting of the trustees and building committee of the armory was held last night with a full attendance, when architect Holden submitted plans of the interior arrangements, which were approved. Colonel Watrous, Bowles, Ripple, Osthouse, Matz, and Captain May and Moore were in attendance at the meeting, and they adopted a resolution for specifications by June 15th. This timeline seems to have been correct, as the Scranton Tribune published a highly detailed plans and specifications on June 28th. There was a slight delay in adopting the plans, but an article on June 30th stated that the plans were accepted and the build process would start. The construction of the armory would be completed in 1901.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so I didn't go too much into the armory itself, like post that, just because I feel like if I got into that, it would be an episode all of itself.
True, yes, very much so. Just as a little side note, I know this is, but in the 1970s, I saw Disney on Ice there, way back when, and for anyone who was there knows that Patrick Swayze was Prince Charming.
Was he really?
Yes, he was, and I always remember that. I remember sitting up there. It was wonderful.
Oh my God.
Yes.
That's fun.
That was back in the 1970s, so.
Yeah. On October 2nd, 1900, the Tribune published an article focusing on buildings being built in Scranton. It mentions Lansing C. Holden and Conrad Schroeder for their work on the armory, along with other projects throughout the city. Conrad Schroeder also did the contracting work for Nancy K. Holmes and here, even though we weren't built by Lansing C. Holden.
That's true, right.
The architect for the Scranton Public Library, or the Albright Building, was Green and Wicks.
Okay, but
yes. Conrad Schroeder is the person who was the contractor for both. And he was also, at the time of the article, putting an addition onto the Scranton Bolt and Nut Company. So I will cover Conrad Schroeder at a different date, just because he was incredibly influential in Scranton.
Yes, he was.
And I feel like he built like every single building.
Yes. And he had an interesting end,
yes,
as we shall say.
Yes. During the time the new armory was to be completed, Holden was chosen to redesign the old armory location into a new theater called Dixie's Theater, due to its owner, Henry Dixie. On November 18th, 1901, the Scranton Times reported that Henry has had many years' experience in theatricals, and his intention is to bring only the very best of talent here. Straight vaudeville, it is believed, will pay in this city, and those who are on the Proctor and Keith circuit are the very best in the business. Scrantonians will have no cause for complaint on the people brought here by Mr. Dixie. The article also notes that Conrad Schroeder was to be the contractor on this project as well.
Wow.
He really was everywhere.
He was.
And then I got very invested in the Dixie and its construction and all the stories around it. So I'm going very much in depth with the Dixie Theater. On February 11th of 1902, the Scranton Republican reported that the city building inspector, F.L. Brown, was one put in charge of making sure the architecture plans for the theater were sound. This included raising the roof and other repairs and alterations that will completely destroy the identity of the building, as reported by the paper. There was to be a stage 30 feet wide and 20 feet high with a depth of 30 feet by 50 feet. The plan was to have 6 floor boxes, a balcony, and a gallery. Another article published on the same day in the Scranton Tribune noted that there would be a seating capacity of 1,000 in the new theater, along with a ladies' retiring room, a children's room, and a gentleman's smoking apartment.
Oh, wow.
They would go on to say, the walls and the ceiling of the theater will be finished with ornamental plasterwork on iron latches, while the arch in the front of the balcony will be finished with paper mache, and the color scheme has not yet been decided. One of the more outdated things that I found about this is they had an asbestos curtain fitted to stop fires.
Oh my gosh.
So today that would not hold up.
No, that would not hold up today. Now, was this building built from the ground up, or was it another building that was
like... It was another building that was existing.
And they remodeled that building. Okay.
And it was in the 200 block of Adams Avenue.
Okay.
I want to say it was 236. I'm not sure if I have it in here anywhere, but I believe that's what I looked up.
Okay. And that's the block where like City Market is?
Yes.
Yes, and like the Geneva House, right into that area.
Yeah, and like Eden Vegan and the bakery.
Okay, so it was right in that area. Okay.
Yep. Okay.
Now I want to know, next time I go by there, I'm going to look, because I know there's a name on that building there.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm going to have to look next time to see what it is.
The building of the new theater was met with controversy, however, as Scranton's local musicians union recommended it to be investigated. They believed that the construction work was unfair to organized labor, as no union carpenters were employed. Since the musicians union recommended it to be placed on their unfair list, they also notified the Actors Alliance union of it as well. On April 17, 1902, the Scranton Times published an article that Jacob Smith was also arrested for receiving stolen goods for accepting a large quantity of pipe that was taken from the Dixie Theater construction site.
Oh, wow.
So they really had a lot of, like, gossip in the newspaper.
Yes, very much so.
And that's what's always so fun about, like, doing the more historical episodes.
Yes, because they said everything.
They did.
Told you everything, whether you wanted to know it or not.
The bad luck of the construction continued into May of 1902. Samuel Crundle, Joseph Morris, Henry Pawson, Marvin Lean, and Samuel Newman were working together on the plaster of the new theater when the scaffolding they were standing on collapsed. The Scranton Times reported that the 5 men were in the center of the scaffold, which is about 40 feet from the pit floor. Suddenly, the structure rocked to and fro, and before the men could escape to the ground, it collapsed in a cloud of dust. Crundle and Newman fell to the pit of the theater, Morris landed on a balcony, and Lennon and Pawson also struck safe. The injuries reported were that Newman and Morris were injured the most, the former's arm being broken and the latter injured about the face and body. Wow. Crundle's injuries are for the most part scratches and contusions. Foreman Pawson was also slightly hurt by the flying timbers. I believe 3 of them that were the most injured went to the hospital.
Okay.
But they had a bit of bad luck.
Yes,
with
they
the
did.
construction
Yes,
there.
yes.
But despite all of the bad luck, it was believed that the theater would open on August 1st of 1902. This was slightly delayed. I don't know why, but it was. And then it opened with its first performance on Monday, August 25th of 1902. It was noted that there were 11 dressing rooms and an automatic window in the roof above the stage just in case there was a fire, so they could just open it and the flames would go out.
Oh, wow.
And then they would drop the asbestos curtain.
Oh, my gosh.
The interior color scheme was oxheart red with ivory, gold, and green accents. The Scranton Republican noted on August 26, 1902, that exclamations of surprise and delight were heard from those who had their first glimpse of the handsome interior. The transformation that the dingy old armory underwent was unanimously voted to be something marvelous. Everyone expected to see something pretty. Few, if any, there were who did not have their expectations more realized. The entertainment for the opening night was listed as Miss Bertie Fowler, monologuist and mimic, Sisson and Wallace, sketch artists, Snyder and Buckley, musicians and comedians, Grant and Grant, song and dance artists, McNamee, clay modeler, Patterson Brothers, horizontal bar experts, and Charles Grapewin's trio, which the paper said they all lived up to Henry Dixie's promise that the theater would be a home of clean, high-class vaudeville only.
Oh, very nice.
No act will be presented that even borders on the suggestive, and none but the best in the vaudeville world has to offer will be booked.
Wow. So he was more family friendly than the other ones that were, very interesting.
And I also know that I saw in the paper that for the gentleman's smoking room that I mentioned before, they were advertising for somebody to sell cigars in the job listings. And it seemed like everyone had a great time.
Yes, they did. Would love to have seen that.
I know.
Because there are no pictures.
I don't believe
that we could find.
No.
Would have been lovely to see.
There were so many theaters in Scranton.
That's true at that time.
We just don't know now.
Right, exactly.
I should probably do an episode on theaters.
Well, that would be a very good one, yes.
Yeah. In a slightly different style of building, Lansing C. Holden also designed the first Presbyterian church on the corner of Allen and Madison Ave. This is now known as the Covenant Presbyterian Church that celebrated its 175th anniversary last year. The Scranton Republican published an article about the building on May 4th, 1903. It reported that Lansing C. Holden had selected the English Gothic style and will follow in many respects the lines adopted in the designs of European cathedrals, so that the symmetry there will be presented some unique ideas. Like many of the buildings in the area, it was to be created from Indiana limestone, also like here.
Yes, exactly.
The interior was to be dark oak wood.
Oh.
Inside of the church seemed to be unique, with the interior color will be a novel departure locally. It is both harmonious and artistic, being arranged so that the enameled brick lining will be in perfect sympathy with the rich color work, both of furniture and windows.
Oh.
The design on the exterior of the building includes 8 flying buttresses arranged octagonally on the northern or olive side. The article states that these are rarely found in American architecture, but visitors to Paris will readily remember this graceful outline in the architectural beauties of the Notre Dame Cathedral. And if you look up the church, it does look different to almost anything else in the city.
Okay.
Because it does have that European flair.
Okay.
The front entrance, nowadays at least, it does look like if you took like one half of Notre Dame, shrunk it down, and like stuck it on a silly breakfast.
Okay. Oh, wow. Now, where exactly is the church located? I'm trying to picture it, and unfortunately I'm having a hard time. You said Madison and Olive?
Let me go back up here a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, Olive and Madison.
Okay. So it's closer up into the hill section, I would believe?
I believe so.
Okay.
I know I looked it up, but I'm just
Yes.
not
And I'm sure I've passed it a million times, but...
I feel that way about like a lot of buildings in the city that this has brought up. Or I see things with... I feel like Lansing C. Holden, maybe it was Lansing, maybe it was Conrad, I'm not sure, but they love the red brick with like the lighter stone accent.
Yes, very
so I
much
feel like I noticed it now in different buildings.
Yes, you're right, yes.
Oh, is that house? Was that by them too?
And they like curves.
Yes.
They really love curves, yes.
The last thing I have is some criticism of Lansing C. Holden.
Okay.
Some people weren't particularly thrilled that he was from New York City.
Okay, understandable.
Local organizations who would have preferred to have buildings in Scranton be built by Scranton architects, often in the paper they would have some criticism published in editorials. One example of this was an article published in the Scranton Times on February 26th of 1898. The Milk Trust planned to build a barn, and the plans were designed by Lansing C. Holden. This was controversial to whoever wrote this article, as it is just what we had a right to expect from the Milk Trust. It started by nominally buying, but actually forcing a large number of people out of business by which they earned a living. It was natural that it should turn down deserving Scranton architects and go for a New York man to plan its stables. It's a little surprising it didn't bring in a New York builder.
Oh.
So they were very much like, people from here should be employed.
Building it, yes.
Instead of bringing in Lansing from New York City.
Because
he would commute back and forth.
Okay, okay.
I'm assuming by train.
I would hope, yeah.
Because at that time the train lines
But a lot
were
of the businessmen in this area were the same way.
Yep.
They went to New York City and commuted back and forth, so.
In terms of history, however, Lansing C. Holden was the architect of many iconic buildings in Scranton. There were only a small selection of them that I talked about, but there are so many more, like the Scranton Country Club, the Oppenheim Building, and the Scranton Electric Building that he designed. And many of them were together with Conrad Schroeder.
Yes.
And I'm covering him later on. I think it's in July that I have him in the schedule. But they were like buddies. They went on fishing trips together.
Yes, yes, they did. They did a lot together.
They just hung out, so I think they were just kind of best friends.
And they did private homes also, besides just commercial buildings.
Yes.
Did they do the Woolworth Mansion up on Jefferson?
I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't see anything
about that. Okay, because I'd be curious to see,
Yeah, but I can't say 100% either way because
I believe they did the one that was the Red Cross building, which is on Jefferson also, across the street, but now it's a private home.
Yeah. Because I know the one I saw was for C.S. Weston.
Oh, yes.
Of Weston Field.
Yes. Yep. And they did the Brooks building too, I believe, which is right on the corner of Linden and Washington.
I'm not good with addresses.
But that's red, and it has the rounded entranceway and.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
That's one of theirs, I believe.
It was across from where the Rite Aid was.
Yes, that's one of theirs, I believe, too.
That is.
Yes.
I saw it on the photos. I forget what they actually called.
Yeah, I don't know what it was called back then, but that's what it. That's what it is now.
Yeah. Do you have anything else?
No, that was very interesting.
Yeah, that's all I have for today. Next week we'll be doing the history of beach reeds and how they started.
Beach reeds?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you said beet trees. I'm like, beet trees? Oh, that'll be very nice.
So,
yes.
If you want to listen to the past episodes of Tales from the Albright, they can be found on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on the library's website at lclshome.org/library-podcasts. You can also just find them by searching online. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, ideas for future episodes, please feel free to email me at aloney@albright.org. That is ALONEY@albright.org. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Bye, everyone.
Bye.